Hi everyone, this is Arcadius and welcome back to Naval Creed. Today we'll be going over the stats clash for the Tier 3 destroyers. So we've just now completed Tier 2 ships and now we are going to start with Tier 3. Now today is going to be an easy video because there's only one Tier 3 destroyer, currently in the game that is, and that is the American destroyer Wix. I've played many games in her and not once have I come across another destroyer other than Wix. So she will only be compared against herself. So it's not really a stats clash, besides just giving you some basic information, but that does give us an intro to the rest of the ships today. So Tier 3 encases matchmaking 2.5 to 3.5 technically. So not only will we see matchmaking Tier 3 ships, but we'll also see matchmaking Tier 3.5 ships. So that's why you'll see some specific ships later on, and I'll explain that in detail. So for just the regular video today, we'll be going over the stats on the American destroyer Wix, which is what you see here. So first off, we're going to start with the basic stats. She has 9,400 health, no torpedo damage percentile reduction. She has 13 millimeters of belt armor, which your destroyer, which it doesn't really matter. Turning circle 430 meters, a speed of 34 knots, so you're pretty fast. Surface detection of 6.6 kilometers, and an air detection of 3.0 kilometers. Now, you're really not going to see many aircraft at this tier. You really don't see aircraft until tier 4 with the carriers. That being said, it is still possible. So, I mean, you can think about it, but honestly, it's not going to do you any good. For your guns, you have four 4-inch guns. You have one on the bow, one on the stern, and two on each wing. So you have a broadside of only 3 guns at, well, maximum. So the guns themselves have a 15-second 180-degree turn time, a rate of fire of 8.4 rounds a minute, or about 7.1 second reload, which is actually pretty trash, honestly. High explosive damage per shell is 1500. Fire percent is 4.6% per shell. HE piercing is only 18 millimeters, which technically means you can still pen through other wicks since they only have a belt armor of 13. So you have no problem of actually penetrating the armor on destroyers and to an extent cruisers. Anything bigger than a destroyer, I would recommend shooting the superstructure, but honestly, I don't even use the guns that much, and I'll explain why in a moment. Armor piercing, 1800 damage per shell, shell velocity of 884 meters per second. That's also the same as the high explosive velocity, so they're pretty fast shells, but still practically useless. Maximum number of shells per broadside is 21, well, per minute is 21. Because you can only use 3 guns at a time, and every 7 seconds you can fire a salvo. So, let's see here. Number of fires. It's actually less than 1 shell. It's like 0.9 if you actually do the math. So, you can set fires, but it's not going to be a lot of fires, if anything. High explosive alpha is about 4,500. Not a lot. It's about, well, less than half your health of 9,400 without any buffs applied. And armor piercing alpha is 5,400. Again, not a substantial number. Honestly, I don't even use the guns on the ship unless I'm too far away to use torpedoes. And then I just use high explosive to try and set some fires on targets. So pretty much all your stats in regards to your shells are pretty much worthless. But that does bring us to the next part. Your gun range is 9.2 kilometers. Not stellar at all, but, still there. Cool. Yeah, so torpedoes. We're going to skip party A for right now because it's easier to group it in this way than the next. You'll see in a moment. So torpedoes. These are the bread and butter of the ship. So you have your speed of 34 knots, and you have 2 triple torpedo launchers on each side. So you actually have 12 torpedoes total, 6 on each side, and they have pretty good arcs, and the rate of fire is so good that you can turn to the left, shoot your torpedoes on your right side, and then turn back to the right, shoot your torpedoes on the left side, and then just turn back to the left again. And by the time you do that, your torpedoes on the right side have pretty much reloaded. So you literally just run around and just spam torpedoes the entire time. You can rush down battleships with your speed, put torpedoes into the side, and with 6 torpedoes, most battleships are actually going to go and be sunk in one broadside salvo, and we'll look at that more. But for right now, your torpedo range, now mind you, this is with the upgraded torpedoes, not the basic torpedoes, because I feel like you don't and shouldn't run with the basic torpedoes. If you really should get the upgraded ones because it's going to help you a lot. So your torpedo range is 5 kilometers, which is pretty short, honestly, and with a concealment of 6.6 kilometers surface detection, there's not going to be any stealth torping. The only way you're going to stealth torp is if you're in a smoke screen. But at this tier, it doesn't really matter all that much. Torpedo speed is 56 knots, so they are actually pretty fast as well. A rate of fire of 1.5 rounds a minute, which boils down to about 40-second reload on your torpedoes. If you stagger fire them, so you fire one launcher and you wait about 20 seconds and then launch the other one, you have 3 torpedoes on each side every 20 seconds, so that's amazing in itself. Torpedo damage, one single torpedo does 8,700 damage, one launcher, so that would be 3 torpedoes, is 26,100 damage, and one broadside, which is 2 triple launchers, is 52,200 damage. Flood percent is 77.01%, and torpedo detection range is 1.5 kilometers. But honestly though, if you have to get in within 5 kilometers to launch torps, you might as well get as close as you can. That way they have no way of avoiding them to begin with. So that brings us to anti-aircraft defense. This, again, just the way I wrote it out on the notebook. It's easier to group the consumables and AA in this way. AA is nothing special, don't get excited, but you're not really going to see any aircraft anyway, so it doesn't matter. At 3 kilometers, you have 1 DPS, and at 1.2 kilometers, you have 5 DPS for a total of 6 DPS and 3 AA guns, which is absolute trash. You're not going to shoot down anything. I've literally sat under a bunch of aircraft. Well, this wasn't a Clemson, so the one above it, but it's the same kind of AA, and I was underneath a shot down, well, a sunken host show with all the aircraft above me, and it was like 5 minutes. I still hadn't shot down a single one. It's actually ridiculous how bad this AA is. So AA is trash, don't even worry about it. Consumables, damage control party, it lasts for 5 seconds, has cooldown of 40 seconds, and unlimited use. Not very long lasting, that is. Smoke, it lasts for 30 seconds, has a long cooldown of 150 seconds, so over, was that 2.5 minutes before you can use it again? But you do have 4 charges of it. And then your speed boost lasts for 81 seconds, cooldown in a minute, and you have 4 charges of that as well. Speed boost, again, going back to the playstyle that I have of just rushing down anything that's slower than you and torpedoing it, it is very nice against battleships because at this tier, not many of them get past 20 or 21 knots or so. So if you're already going 34 knots and you have a speed boost and you're going even faster than that, you're just going to run up to them. They're not going to have a chance to really shoot you. You're going to torpedo them, and then you're going to run away laughing. And that's why I actually kind of like this ship. You just spam torpedoes and you sink anything you come across. So that being said, we're going to do another kind of comparison between all the ships at this tier that can use torpedoes versus all the ships at this tier in general. And we'll see if you go side by side and you put as many broadside torpedoes as you have into the side of the enemy target, would you be able to sink it in one shot? We did this with the other destroyers and cruisers of tier 2, and we're going to do that with tier 3. So as mentioned, this tier will have tier 3 and 3.5 ships. So that's why you'll see ships such as Kuma and the newest Pan-Asian cruiser, I should say Chinese cruiser, Ninghai. Those are 3.5s, same as Caledon, which is the British 3.5, but you will see those ships when you play Wix. So I'm still going to compare them. All right, so here is that. So we have a Wix, and then at the top we have all the ships of tier 3, 3.5 arranged in ascending health points, not necessarily torpedo protection. As you can see, for example, Invincible has a 25% torpedo protection, but it's ranked lower than Corbeil, which has only 6% torpedo protection, because Corbeil actually has more health than Invincible, so you can kind of understand that way. So Wix can take out all destroyers, that is another Wix. It can also take out all cruisers, and it can take out all battleships except Wyoming and Mikasa. Now, remember, this is only broadside, so you're only using 6 torpedoes. If you, I don't know, do a 180-degree turn and all of a sudden you have your 2 other launchers on the opposite side, you would be able to put down those other 2 battleships without a problem. And I actually found a mistake I had in one of my earlier torpedo comparisons that we did for Tier 2. It showed that Novik could actually one-shot a Mikasa with using all 8 of its torpedoes at one time. Saturation being ignored, that's actually incorrect. I redid the numbers and it's only a couple thousand points off, but it doesn't actually have the capability. And another thing, the reason why I'm comparing Danton, Mikasa, and Kawachi, which are Tier 2 battleships, and a Tier 3 matchmaking, is because when you actually play the ships yourself, you're going to be tossed into Tier 3 games. So when I play Kawachi or when I play Danton, I'm tossed into Tier 3 matchmaking games. However, when I play matchmaking Tier 2 games with other ships, such as Katori, for example, well, that's actually not a good example, such as Dresden. If I played Dresden, I would come across Danton, Kawachi, the likes. So that's why they're also being compared in a Tier 3. That doesn't necessarily mean you'll always see them in a Tier 3. So if I played a Corbeil myself, I might not ever see a Mikasa or a Danton, but it's still a possibility. But yeah, so Wix can take out every single ship in one broadside salvo except Wyoming and Mikasa, which are the most healthiest ships. They don't have the highest torpedo protection. That goes to Invincible, but Mikasa is a close second. Interesting fact, a Tier 2 battleship of Mikasa actually has more health than every single 3.0 and 2.0 battleship at this tier. So there's your little fun fact of the day. So she actually is a pretty decent event ship. I really wish I had her. But yeah, so Wix is relatively strong, and then there's only 4 other ships that we would have to compare, and that's Tenryu, Kuma, Ninghai, and Caledon. Those are the only other ships that have torpedoes at this tier, but we'll go over that next week when we do cruisers. So yeah, pretty easy video this week. Not really much to talk about considering there's only the one ship. But yeah, there you have it. Tier 3 destroyers so far. That could change in the future, obviously. If I were to guess, I would say there could be Italian, there could be French, there could be German destroyers. There's many options that you can have. Heck, you can even probably have a few more Russian destroyers because there's only about 5 or 6 of them. So I would like to see those in the game, but until then we only have the one Tier 3 matchmaking ship of destroyers, and that is Wix. So again, thank you for watching and take care.